Hi, so just wanted to do a quick video on explaining how to use the ThinkCar or Smart Safe Launch TPMS tools for programming new TPMS sensors. So whether you're using, say, the Euromax with this type TPMS wand, or there's the VNU type TPMS wand. I don't have one here at the minute to show. The Smart Safe Launch, this is the i601 Max. Or another example is the Master X2. So with the Master X2 and the Smart Safe Launch, there's no separate wand. You're just holding the head of the tool up against the sensor, so the TPMS function is built directly into the tool. If you look here, you can see TPMS. This is the corner of the tool that you hold up against the sensor when you're going to do programming. So just to explain the sensors first, with the ThinkCar ones, there's metal and rubber. Obviously the same with the Smart Safe Launch ones. So these are universal sensors, so they cover kind of 95% of the 95% of makes and models. So to explain the difference between universal sensors and dealer sensors, I have a dealer sensor here. So this is from an older Peugeot 407, I think. So the dealer sensor the sensor is already pre-programmed for that car. So it's ready to fit to that car, and it has the ID already written into it. So that's ready to be fitted to that car and learned to that car, whereas the universal sensors come completely blank. So the protocol for that particular car needs to be learned into these sensors first. Once that's done, then it's the same as a dealer sensor. So it has, once the sensor is programmed for the car, then it just needs to be learned, the same as the way a dealer sensor is done. There's actually a video on the box of the ThinkCar sensors with instructions on how to manually fit the sensor to the wheel. It says to torque the sensors to 4 Newton meters. So we have these kits in stock as well for torquing and fitting the sensors, but the 4 Newton meter torque wrenches are readily available anyway. So just before I go any further, just to say the ThinkCar TPMS tools will only program ThinkCar TPMS universal sensors, and it'll also program dealer sensors. But it won't program other makes of TPMS sensors. Same goes for the launch-based TPMS sensors. The tool will only program launch sensors, not other brands of sensors, other brands of universal sensors. So it'll do its own brand universal sensor and dealer sensors. We do supply other tools that do multiple brands of universal sensors, but just showing using the tool then. We're just going to use the Euromax, but as I said, the process will be similar on the other tools anyway. So I'm just going to go in under a Peugeot 407 because I have this dealer sensor here. Okay. So you've 3 different options at the top. You've active. So that's the function that you use to read the sensors. So if you want to test the 4 sensors on the car, it's active that you're using. Programming then is as we said, to pre-program or pre-code the sensors to make them suitable for that car. And then learning is actually learning the sensor to the car when the sensor has been created as a dealer sensor. So just go back to activate. So you can see here on the TPMS wand, it's connected by Bluetooth to the tool. So I'm just going to show reading this Peugeot sensor. So press OK to activate. So you can see here it's after reading it, and the data is displayed on the diagnostic tool as well. So it gives you the ID code, the pressure and the temperature. It's read all that from the sensor itself. So if you're wanting to test the other 3 sensors on the car, just press to go to the next wheel, and then obviously go to the next wheel, press OK. So it's telling me here that it's a duplicate, please try again. So obviously if you have 4 different sensors, it'll show up the data. Once you go around the 4 wheels, it'll show up the different ID data for the 4 different sensors. So that's pretty straightforward. Once you go to the programming section, then you have a few different options down the bottom here. So there's an option to read the ECU ID, so it'll be reading that through OBD. There's usually not much need to read that. To actually code a new universal sensor, we have a few different options. So here's the universal sensor here. So you can go copy by OBD. So that function allows you to connect up your OBD interface, and that actually reads the codes from the ECU that are already saved. So that's available for a lot of different cars, not all of them. So it'll read the ID from the ECU, and then you can, through the wand, you can write those IDs into 4 different sensors. So that's mainly useful if you're fitting 4 sensors. Copy by activation, then that's if the old sensor is still readable. It allows you to copy the data from, so say this is our old sensor. It'll allow you to copy the data from the old sensor and then write it to the new universal sensor. The manual option then is where you can create your own ID that you write into the sensor. So if we press that there, it'll allow us to write in any ID that we want. So say if the old sensor, if we still physically have the old sensor and we're able to read it from the car, so like in this case, we can type in CDFB0FA7. We can type that in here and then program it to the universal sensor. So for those 3 functions, or those 3 options, you won't have to do any learning procedure afterwards, because you're using the same code as what was the same ID code for the sensor that was previously fitted. So any of those 3 options, if it can be done by any of those 3 ways, that's the easiest way to do it. The auto function then is where it'll create its own random ID. So it's the tool is after making up an ID here now. And if we go programming, so it's writing that to that sensor now. Just make sure that there's no other sensors close to the one that you're writing while it's doing it. So I've moved those away. success. So now it's, for this wheel, it's written the random ID that we've created into that wheel, and it's showing it here now as well. So obviously I'm doing this on the table, but all of this can be done when the sensors are fitted to the car as well. So because we've created a random ID now, that sensor will have to be learned to the car. So if you go learning, it gives you two different options. So depending on the car, this may vary. Some of them can only be done by OBD, some of them can only be done manually. So this one can only be done by OBD. All the instructions, the tool gives you all the instructions. So it'll write, or it'll, in some cases you can do a manual learning procedure where it might tell you to drive the car for 30 minutes and the car will pick up the sensors automatically. In other cases then, there's cases where to learn it, like I know some of the Mitsubishis, to learn the sensors, it makes you go to each wheel with the TPMS wand and activate each sensor. And so basically you're waking up the sensor, and when the sensor is woken up, then the ECU in the car learns the code from it. So just a couple of other little tips. Say in some cases, I've gone in under a Ford Focus here, so there's a slight overlap in the years. So if the car that you're working on, say, is late 2018, this could be either this model or this model. So in that case, you've two options. It's either get the OE number, and if we click in here, this model uses these OE numbers. Each OE number is written at the bottom of the screen. And this model uses different OE numbers. So if you know what OE number is supposed to be fitted to the car, or if you can read it from the old sensor, then you can decipher which option to pick. But if you do pick the wrong option, you'll be able to program the sensor okay, but when it comes to the learning function, it won't learn because the universal sensor is created as the wrong sensor. So that's one place where you can get caught. Also, Hyundai, Kia have a high line and low line sensors. So the easiest way to pick out whether your car has high line or low line TPMS sensors, the high line ones, if you look in the dashboard, it shows a picture of each wheel, whereas the low line just has a TPMS light. It doesn't show you any wheel or pressures or anything. Just one other thing then as well, if you're using, say, the Euromax with the TPMS wand, or even the Venu wand, obviously you won't have this problem with this one or the X2, where the TPMS function is built into the tool. But if you have any issues using one of the tools where it's using a separate wand, when you go into TPMS first, if you can't connect to your TPMS wand, or if you're having problems connecting, there's an option here for firmware fix. So if we do that, it'll update the firmware in the TPMS wand. It'll update the firmware wirelessly. You don't have to be connected. So just if you're having any issues, that's one thing to try do. So it's just going to show us all how to connect to your TPMS wand. Just hit OK. So it's picking up this wand here now by Bluetooth. We can see the end of the serial number that it's picked up is 228. So we've 228 in the back of this. So if we had this turned off now at the minute, it wouldn't pick up this at all. So available to connect, so just hit OK or hit there and it'll connect. And just the other thing then that I was going to explain, in Europe there's two different different frequencies used in TPMS sensors. So there's 433 megahertz or 315 megahertz, I think is the other one. So if we go in under American, so ADI, yeah, so it's all 315. Oh, there's a 433 there as well, but mainly America uses 315 megahertz, whereas all European cars it's 433 that they're using. So the only options here are for 433. So hopefully that covers everything you need to get started with your TPMS tool. Thanks for watching.